everyone, and welcome to JotForm's show. Today I have with me Aytekin Tank. Aytekin's actually dialing in from Ankara, Turkey, which is actually the capital of Turkey. Everyone thinks Istanbul is, but it actually isn't. So Aytekin is the founder of JotForm. He started his journey in 2009, I think?
2006.
2006. It's now a leading platform with 25 million users, is a compelling example of innovation and perseverance. And Aytekin's experience in the tech industry could offer you, our audience, you guys, a unique perspective on integrating AI into business processes and productivity. He's a frequent contributor to Forbes, Entrepreneur, and Fast Company, sharing his insights on entrepreneurship and technology. And he now has 600 people working for him. Welcome to the show, Aytekin. It's actually a big pleasure to have you here.
Hello, Jeff. Good to be on your show, and it's a pleasure to be on your show.
So, Aytekin, it's 2006, and you start JotForm. Where did this all start from? What was the inspiration? Was like, what was a call for you to start JotForm? Was it a problem?
I was right out of college. I started working for this media company in New York, and I worked there for 5 years. And I was this programmer. I was a developer, and one of my duties was to create forms. And we had like over 100 websites, and I would create all kinds of forms, like questionnaires, surveys, payment forms. And I actually didn't like it much. Like I didn't want to spend time creating forms. It was boring. Like I wanted to work on more challenging tasks. And I actually looked for a product that can actually help me with that. I couldn't find a product. And because I had I was working with so many editors, and they needed so many forms, that I actually knew what kind of forms people need. And I always had this idea to start my own company. And I said, okay, maybe, when I start my company, this is what I should do. And then once I was ready at the end of that 5 years, and when I was ready to start my own business, I said, this is it. I'm going to start this product. I'm going to call this JotForm. And yeah, I started the forms business, because, I hated forms. I didn't want to create forms. And it actually makes sense because other people also, don't know how to create forms or hate creating forms. So that, they can actually focus on the form or the automation that brings it the form, as opposed to creating the form. So, make it so easy that you can just drag and drop stuff on your browser to create a form. And that's what I try to do. And, that's why a lot of people actually use JotForm today, because it makes it so easy to create forms.
Right. Sounds a little bit like Uber, that the big problem they had was trying to hail a taxi in Paris, and it was just painful. They were cold. So you solved a problem which you were experiencing.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's very important for a founder to have an experience with this problem they are solving. If you have an experience, if you understand your customers, that's going to make a big difference. Otherwise, you're constantly trying to find the right solution, trying to find the right customers. But because I had so much experience, I was able to build the exact product people needed. And the one thing I did was I wanted to make sure that a lot of people try and use this product, because it's so new and I didn't know how to reach people. So I said, it's all going to be free. So I quit my job in 2005, and I built the product until February 2006. And I said, it's all free. JotForm is free, and come and use it. At least for the first year, it's going to be free. Then we will have the premium editions. But, so I wanted to get that feedback from people. I wanted a lot of people to use it, and it worked. In 2007, a year after I released the free version, I actually released the paid plans. And once I released that, I already had 15,000 users using that, and then 500 of them actually upgraded to become paid users. And it turned out a great marketing tactic, strategy to actually have a free version. And we still have a free version today. Like first 100 submissions, and we actually have that on all of our products. Like we have a product called JotForm Apps. It's like no-code app builder, where you can actually add your forms or other things and build a mobile app. Or like we have a JotForm sign. It's an e-signature solution, like similar to DocuSign. And all of our products actually have that. Like you use it for free, only when you actually need a lot more needs. Like when you reach a point that you upgrade, it's basically freemium. And freemium works because that's how we got like 25 million users, because when you have a premium, like it actually allows you to meet with people, like just introduce yourself to the people, try your product. There's nothing blocking that first impression. And once they see how good you are, like we provide customer support to free users. Nobody does that. And once they experience working with your company, once you create that impression, it's just easier to turn them into customers. And even like today we have an enterprise edition, even to turn them into enterprise customers.
So the freemium thing is actually really important because everyone wants something for free. And the reality is, how do you get them to upgrade to your premium versions? Because you can give it away for free to a certain point, but how do you actually get them to convert? Like, is it like restricting the features you have? Obviously, that's part of a freemium. And then you moved on to enterprise customers. So
Yeah, I'm actually against that. I'm against disabling features, like not what we do is like we will put a limit. Like we want people to use all the features.
right.
But if they have a big need, then they actually go to the paid version. Like if they need to use the product as a team, which actually makes sense because you might actually have like many people using the forms data. You want to share the data within the company. That's actually kind of like the enterprise edition is like more for like companies that use it as a team, as a department, or as the whole company. And many of the features we have, they actually, you can actually use them as a free user, but there are limits. And then, once you actually like, because we want people to like try the features, use the features, and see how good they are. And once you become like this user that like uses all these features, and there's also goodwill. Like people see that like, hey, this company is providing so much value to us. Why don't we just pay them like $50 in return? And that also happens. But once you actually use it a lot, like for example, with forms, like we have this 100 form submissions per month. Like if you go above that, then you upgrade to the paid plan.
Right.
And yeah.
So you saw the problem in 2005 and going, I think I can do this. I want to work for myself. So are you a programmer or did you hire people to do it for you?
Before I started JotForm, I never actually managed anybody. I never I was just this like the individual contributor, lowest ranking individual contributor programmer, and so this is actually one of the beauties of bootstrapping. We never received investment. We never received like VC or any other kind of investment. It's all bootstrapped, so it's all like self-funded. This actually means that it was very slow. Like the first year, it was me, 2005 to 2006, and then 2006 to 7. It's once the company started, I don't know how I hired my first employee and then the second employee. So for the first 5 years, like I was just hiring one additional employee every year. This actually allowed me to grow. Like this allowed me to learn the ropes, like learn how to become a manager. I learned marketing. I learned, business. like all the things that I need to learn. I had the time because I had this small team that I didn't have like this big, big costs or anything. So, I learned the ropes by just doing them. Like it's,
Yep.
not just bootstrapping by financing, it's also bootstrapping in, management and in everything. And this is actually great because I think it's about the journey. Like when I look back like 10 years ago or 15 years ago, I actually enjoyed as much as I enjoy today. But when you have this mindset that like you have to go quick and you have to exit, like you have to earn these big monies
Yeah.
and you need to like just earn millions of dollars and then retire. When you have that mindset, you're not actually enjoying the
No,
day. It's like you are just trying to rush things, and it's not very healthy.
no.
And today I enjoy in a different way. Today I can actually like I focus on a few things. I focus on the JotForm journey, and
Yeah.
this is actually one of the things that I talk about, which is being a founder versus a CEO. A founder is someone who, like, people assume like my title is founder and CEO, and people assume that the founder part of my title is about the past. I actually don't think that way. I actually feel like the founder part of my title is about the future. It's
Right.
about like I'm responsible for the future of JotForm. I'm responsible for the future of our team. How can we have a healthy growth? How can we continue to grow like 50% every year? And how can we continue to have this great culture in our offices? How can we have this like product that people are, still satisfied, as opposed to like trying to like, optimize the revenues and everything like that. I'm looking into the future. And in many companies, like when the investors decide or the founder decides that they're going to exit, like they get their uh, money and then they leave the company. What happens is that once there's no founder, the company actually still improves, like still optimizes, the revenues increase, but the future, there's no future. Like there's no like no one is actually thinking about the future. No one is actually kind of deciding how things should be and then like how to reinvent themselves. And I think that's bad. I think it's, and after that point, there's no like real like big innovation happening. So I think founders have this responsibility to
Yes.
continuously reinvent the company, product, and the people.
So you're playing a long game, aren't you?
Exactly. It's about playing the long game.
Yeah. Because quite often when you look at, startups and everything, it's like, how can I make money fast? And going, but you've done that from an innate, I suppose, space where you're going, I want to solve this problem. I want to build something that's sustainable.
Exactly.
And
And yeah,
you've done that. And so you're nearly you're 18 years in, which is fantastic. I heard of you a long time ago. So when I was approached to interview you, I went, I've heard of these guys, right? Didn't know you, but that's actually really cool. So from a startup point of view, it's bootstrapped from both conceptual and ideas as well as funding. So when did you realize you said, okay, there's something happening here? When did that happen? So 2006, you said you launched it. 2005, you're building it. So when you go, something's happening, what was that? When was that realization?
it was right at the launch. I knew that this was the right product and this was going to become successful because when I launched it, there was a big interest. And so for like the PR strategy, when I launched it, what I wanted to do is actually use the technology angle. This is 2006, and Gmail just came out, I think 2004 or 2005. And there was this, like before then, if you wanted to use software, like you would go and use like this desktop product, like, Microsoft, you would install it on your operating system, right? And now there were like this Salesforce was kind of talking about the cloud, and Gmail was actually like you would go to Gmail and you didn't have to actually like go from page to page. Like you could just like one page apps were like this new hype. So my product was kind of the showcase of what can be done with the new technologies.
Yep.
So basically, this form builder, you can actually like instantly edit things, which wasn't very common at that time. You
Yep.
could just go and edit something. You could just drag and drop stuff on your screen, which is today is like very common. Like everybody expect that. But at that time, like it was like one of the first examples of doing that. And I think that one of the reasons was as a developer, I was actually like following very closely what's happening. And if I was actually releasing a new product, I would actually follow what's going on with AI because it's the all hype. And I would use that, hype cycle, hype to kind of release my product with that because everyone wants to talk about AI. And, if you release an AI product, it's very exciting, right? It's the same way at that time, like having products work on your browser and single page apps that can have like drag and drop, instant edit, like just like a software wasn't very common. And once I released that, everybody started talking about that. Hey, look at JotForm, like, you can do so much stuff. That there's like so many things we can do. And I also had a blog, and the blog title of my blog was about, web applications is the future. And I was talking about how like desktop products, like desktop software was the old and the web was the new. And in the future, everything is going to be on the web. And people were like dismissing me, like, how can that happen? Like, you cannot do Photoshop people were saying you cannot do Photoshop on desktop. And today we know that that's not true. Like Figma, actually, even, all these products are now working on browser as opposed to being a, installable operating system software. So I think it's important, like, whatever your as a founder, whatever is your like, powerful, like just strongest skills, like you should focus on it. Like just lean on wherever you are strong. And at that time I was strong at technology because I was following technology, because I was building products while I was working for this media company, because I was like, I was following what's going on, and I used that to release it. And once I released that, and people were excited, but it wasn't just people were excited. Like once people actually came to JotForm to know about like what's going on here, like they actually started using the product. And from the day one, I started tracking numbers, like how many people are signing up, how many people are actually creating forms, how many people are receiving form submissions. And I could see that there's a growth. Like at the end of the first month, I could see that people were using this product. And at that time, I was like, I installed this forum product. I think it was like PHP BB or something like that. And like just I was providing support publicly. And even today at JotForm, like we provide support publicly because we want people to see that, hey, this is like, even for the free product, we have support, free public support. And people actually saw that, when someone actually had a problem and they requested something, the next day I would reply, hey, it's done. Like if they reported a bug, I will say it's fixed now. Or if they request a feature, I will say, hey, it's done. Like try using it. Like I was so responsive to those like first customers that actually created, like, when someone actually came to JotForm and solved that, there's this developer that is actually like very responsive, like this owner of the product is like very responsive to the request. That actually created more credibility, and that results in more people using the product. So that's, from the day one, I knew that this was going to become successful.
So were you writing the code for doing this?
Yeah, I was alone in the beginning. I was doing the design and the code and everything. And then like 2006, like September, I hired my first employee. I actually moved back to Turkey. I'm from Turkey and I was living in the US for 9 years. I
Right.
moved back to Turkey so that I can actually lower my costs. I moved back with my family. Like my costs suddenly went to zero, like right. And then I actually opened my first office. I hired my first employee, and then the second employee the next year. So slowly grown. And then a few years later, I actually went back to the US and opened our first office in the US in San Francisco this time.
Yep.
But yeah, so it's just and that's that really worked as a bootstrapper. I think it's important to like have as low cost as possible
Oh, yeah.
because as long as you have less expenses than your like you have your revenues exceed your expenses, you have unlimited time, right? As long as your product is growing every day and your more people are using your product
Mhm.
and you have low churn, and as long as you have more revenue than expense, you can do this, infinite, like there's no limit. And that was the idea, and that's how. And sales is kind of like that. It grows so slowly, very slowly, and then like, and if you have low churn, then it starts snowballing after like 5 years or 3 years. Like it just takes time to get that to point. Yeah.
Yep. So we've seen the rise of AI, which allows you to create a lot of content, forms, processes at a click of a button. So how are you dealing with the impact of AI for your business?
Yeah. So we have been actually working on this new product for the last year, and we are going to release it towards the end of this year. And it's called JotForm AI. And the basic idea is that uh, we want to basically replace our own business, right? We want to replace forms. Because if you think about it, forms are necessary, right? Because forms are necessary because you need to kind of automate this communication between people. Like especially if you're dealing with a lot of people,
Yep.
our top customers are education, healthcare, not non-profit, like we all kinds of like businesses use JotForm, but these are like top clients because they deal with other people, right? They deal with like in education, you deal with students, teachers, parents, everything. Like just you have so many things going on. And if you have forms, you can actually automate this communication. Like if someone wants to make a request, if someone wants to register for something, if someone needs to pay for something, apply for something, like there's all kinds of needs. And this actually forms actually automate all this stuff, and it's great. But one thing that lacks with forms is it's kind of lacks. They're not very smart. Forms are not very smart. Like you just fill out the form because they don't know much about things, and so you have like if you have a question while you're filling out a form, you don't you cannot ask someone, right? And they're not very fast. Like they're kind of slow. Like you cannot just speak their form. Like
Yep.
just you have to type, and it's like most of the time, like many people kind of spend so much time typing, and so we have this idea that what if instead of filling this form, what if you could just talk to a JotForm AI agent? What if instead of filling out a JotForm form, you talk to a
Yep.
JotForm AI agent?
Yep.
And the great thing about this agent is that when you talk to this agent, that the agent actually doesn't just take your information, but it can actually provide the information. It can answer your questions. It can kind of ask you questions to find out about your, business or whatever you are trying to do. And it can have a conversation. This AI agent, like if you're selling something, if this is lead generation form, this AI agent can actually become the salesperson and then, sell the product or service. If you are providing support, like this AI agent can have all the information about your product and you can actually train this AI agent so that it can answer your customers about it. This is great. This is kind of like if you think about it, an educational administrator like doesn't have time to talk to like hundreds of students
No.
all the time, like doesn't have time to explain everything. But if this education administrator can replace themselves with this AI agent, the AI agent can talk to the people on their behalf. So we have been working on this product for a year, and then we have been testing it with like small beta program, and we are seeing like and we watch all these sessions, right? People having this conversation with the AI agent. And my biggest worry was like people would dismiss AI agents. Like I was like that in the past, like because chatbots weren't like didn't have any knowledge. When you ask a chatbot any question, like you didn't get an answer, like you get terrible answers. Like, and I would always be dismissive about chatbots until like ChatGPT came out. And so this is actually like changed, and people are actually open. People are open to talking to AI agents, and people actually talk to them, ask questions, learn about stuff, and if the person who has who creates this AI agent takes the time to train their agent, then like provides all the information, uploads the PDF files, maybe provide the website URL so that the AI agent can go, and sometimes the AI agent goes back to the owner of the form about asking about the question, like asking about their kind of, hey, like what's your answer about this? Like how should I answer about this, right? So you have to take the time to train your agent, and it's not easy. That's the part we have been struggling with, like just
Right.
training
Okay.
agents. And but we are getting close, and we are really excited about this. And I think the technology is there. Like just like there's just so many things you can do, and I feel like the AI is gonna turn everyone into managers, right? Right now, like most of the employees that work in your company, most of the people who work are individual contributors, right? Like there's like individual contributors, then you have like managers, then you have like mid managers, and you have VPs, right?
Yep.
But in the future, everyone is going to become a manager, because as an individual contributor, right, you have very limited time. You don't have many knowledge. But what if you could have all these AI agents working for you, doing the job for you, right? What would happen is that instead of doing something yourself, you just hand over that task to an AI agent that accomplishes the task for you, and then you actually do something else, and basically you start like thinking like a manager as opposed to thinking like a individual contributor. Like you
Yep.
are becoming this person who is actually like kind of telling what to do to these AI agents so that you can actually kind of manage them. Like as a manager, like what kind, like in the real world, what kind of duties managers have? Like you need to train your teammates, like your subordinates. You need to kind of provide them one-to-one feedback, right? You need to like help them on their job. Maybe you need to set metrics to them, like just
Yep.
try to get this level. Like you do all these things, right?
Yep.
But instead of these individual contributors, what if you could actually, get AI agents to do them, and you're basically providing feedback to them, providing instructions to them. And I feel like the future of work is about like everyone is so productive. We are all producing so much, and people are afraid like AI is going to take over our jobs, but it didn't happen in the past. Like whenever we had this automation, whenever we had like new technology taking over jobs, like people who are driving these like horse carriages, they stop doing that, but they start doing other things, right? Because once we become more productive, we create so much more value that we can actually work on higher value tasks. And
Yep.
I'm pretty sure that everyone will have jobs. Everyone will have much better jobs. Like instead of doing these like very boring, repetitive tasks, people are going to be doing these kind of more creative, kind of working with the AI. AI can also do creativity, but someone has to manage them, right? Someone has to kind of take them, kind of organize them, and probably like companies are going to become like much more nimble. They're going to become smaller, but there's going to be much bigger number of companies who are specialized in like different kind of things.
Yep.
And I see a bright future with the AI, and we are gonna have much more fun as opposed to like doing these boring tasks.
Good. So actually what you're talking about is taking AI removes the mundane and allows us to do the important things.
Exactly. I mean, if you think about it, filling out a form is boring,
It is
boring
really,
job,
really,
but
yeah.
and I mean, it's boring, but you have to do it, right? It's part of like you're applying for something, you're registering for something, you have to do it, right? But it's not just about being bored, but it doesn't also provide you any information. Like it doesn't answer your questions. So if you can actually talk to someone, it's just much more simpler.
Yep.
It's just you can ask your questions. Maybe you don't need to fill that form. Maybe you need to fill out another form, and then you're wasting time. But if you can converse with someone, that AI agent can provide you. So it's kind of replacing the person, like just like replicating the person who can answer those questions. And this like increases productivity so much, but it's very challenging. It's not easy. There are like a lot of demos on the web. Like you can see these demos about like AI sales agents like talking to someone on the phone, but
Yep.
most of them are scripted because it's just it's not that easy. It's
No.
very difficult, and we are actually seeing those challenges. But the technology is advancing, and also even if like people are understanding, like we actually watch these conversation, we watch the chat, we read these like chat conversations between people and the form agents, and we watch the audio conversations. And what we see is that people are actually understanding. They know that they're talking to an AI agent, and if the AI agent gives them a wrong answer, they're not getting angry. They understand that they're talking to a machine, and they explain it better, and they correct the AI agent, and then they continue, and they don't have to wait. They don't have to email someone to get an answer. They can get their answers there, right there and now, and that makes a big difference.
Yep. So, yeah, for me, I go to a website, I want to buy something, and we have this already happening. Like you put in your name, and then it says, do you want to auto-fill this form? Which could be things like, okay, my credit card details, except for the CVC. It could be my address. It could be, so, yep, because filling in forms is actually boring as batshit, right? It's like it's something that we love to hate, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So what are the biggest industries that you solve that problem for? In other words, filling in forms, creating forms is one thing, you're giving them the form to use. So you're talking about AI helping them automatically fill the form?
Yeah, that's exactly what's happening.
Right.
So what we found was that if we start asking questions directly, that may not be a good approach. That's no different than like filling a boring form. But
Yep.
if you start with a conversation and then answer the questions of the person, and then once they're ready, then okay, I can once the AI agent says, okay, can I take some information, and then the AI agent starts like asking those questions on the form. uh Obviously on the chat it's no different than filling out a form, But in many ways, it's sometimes easier as well. Like just kind of you can actually say things in a sentence. Say, if you, for example, if you need to state a date, you can just say, quickly, July 15 or something. And then they will just, it will turn, the AI agent will turn. And then we also ask the person to review the form they are about to submit. That also helps, because if the AI agent misunderstood something, they can actually review and make sure that there's no incorrect information on the form. Yeah, it's exactly like that. You still have the form submission, but it's much more easier, and the person who is filling out the form gets their questions answered, and just it's much better. And if in the middle of the form, if they have a question, like if they have a question about a specific question, and they, the AI agent can also answer those questions. So that actually makes a bigger difference. We have been doing this for at least 6 months. We have been doing this beta testing with a lot of users. I don't think we have any statistically significance data on that, but what I feel like happening is that it's actually increasing the conversion rates as well on the forms. Like people are completing their forms more often, because, or maybe if they don't need to fill out that form, maybe if they're filling out the wrong form, and if the agent like just redirects them to the right form, maybe the conversion rate is lowering, but it's actually the real conversion rate is increasing, and that's what matters. Yeah.
So what's the future? So the future for you is actually leaning more into AI?
Definitely. The future is about the AI. And I always believe that kind of when you are building a product, you have to kind of go slowly, get feedback from users, like just as opposed to like just building it at once and then then move on to another product or something like that. So when we release JotForm AI towards the end of this year, that's just going to be the beginning, and we are going to see how things are going. We are going to receive a lot of feedback, and AI makes a lot of mistakes. So we are going to have some angry customers like saying, "Hey, my AI is saying things like this." Like, just it happens. Like, there's just no way around it. Like, they are not real. They are not. They can make mistakes, but I think the technology is improving every day. And we are actually, that's why we are taking so long to release this. And but we have to keep working on this for many years to be able to really create this great product. But I think the idea is, I see our job as automation. When I started JotForm, I thought that I was just helping people create forms. But over the years, what I discovered was people are not just filling out forms just to fill out forms. There is something going on, like there's some operation, there's a process that needs to be completed. There's a workflow that needs to be completed, and we are basically helping with that. What we are really lucky about is usually forms are like the first step in that process, and that workflow may involve like 10 or 20 different steps. And what we started doing is, like, we're not going to just stop in the first step. We are going to help people with the next steps as well. Like, that's why we created all these additional products. Like, we have a document generation product. Like, we can take all the data from these forms and create these PDF files. We have a signature product. So when you fill out a form, when you need to sign a document at the end of this workflow, like, we also help with that. We have this approval workflow solution where you can actually, get approvals from this form submission and then maybe send the next form, maybe do something else, maybe generate a new email. So we are basically helping people automate their processes, their workflows. And I think the same thing applies to AI as well. Like, we are starting with turning our forms into AI agents, but in time, that's gonna probably help. We are gonna probably start automating more and more things with AI, helping people automate things with AI. So that's what we see. Like a lot of AI companies, they're actually releasing all these technologies, but they are not actually seeing any like real world kind of real world value. There's like many times they cannot see the real world value because like they are kind of away from the customers. They are thinking about the technology, and they're really doing great jobs. Like they're creating all these great technologies. But in our case, it's the reverse. Like we are actually first, we are not focused on the technology. We are focused on providing real world solutions to
Yep.
existing customers. And if we can provide solutions to our existing customers, then we are creating these AI products that can actually help other people as well. We can actually grow our business as well. And then our guide is our existing customers, and which actually allows us to go more slowly, but build real world solutions to real world problems.
So talking about real world problems and real solutions. So what are some of the biggest industries that you're solving those problems for? What's your target market that works best for you? And what are the industries that are going, I need help with forms?
Uh, Top three industries for us is basically education, healthcare, and nonprofits, because these industries have to deal with a lot of people. Like they have in education, you have the students, teachers, parents,
Yep.
all kinds of employees. And in healthcare, like you have patients, doctors, like just like so much communication going on. And because we are HIPAA compliant, and because uh, we are kind of we have these secure versions of JotForm that
Yep.
healthcare is very big as well for us. Um, and nonprofit as well. And and these industries involve, they're not just people filling out the forms. They're not just filling out the form. People also have a lot of questions. So this JotForm AI solution is like matches their problems so well. Like
Yep.
this is such a great product for them. And we see that and someone from these industries are actually using JotForm AI, just it's so useful for them. But like on all these beta testers that we see them, just makes it so much easier for them. And so, you know, for example, let's say a nonprofit example, American Heart Association uses JotForm. And like when you need to do like these educational classes, and when they take these people like register for these classes,
Yep.
right? JotForm AI can help people answer questions about all these like different kind of courses, and then it can ask questions, find out more, and
Yep.
then fill out this, find out about all the dates available, and then sign up for the classes. That would be a real world example. And in the universities, like University of Michigan, for example, uses JotForm. And many universities use JotForm so that people can apply for all these different kind of like scholarships. They can apply for they can make requests, register for classes, and all these different kind of things. And all these examples involve so much like communication. It's not just data collection or just entering some data on a form, but it's two-way communications involved, and AI can actually provide that help with that communication.
So industries that need to provide compliance, is that a big deal for you guys?
Industries do
That
what?
need to comply. In other words, a lot of
Comply.
compliance.
Yeah.
Yeah. So is that your
Compliance are really big because when you are dealing with data, it's just like the world has changed. Like when we started JotForm 18 years ago, people were less sensitive about privacy and compliances. But
yep,
once everyone actually became, you know, started using online and cloud products, like privacy and compliances became very important. And we have all these compliances like SOC 2 compliance, HIPAA compliance, and these compliance is really important for our customers because they cannot use our product in that way. And same thing applies with JotForm AI. So we cannot use ChatGPT, for example, because what happens with ChatGPT is you are actually sending data to OpenAI, and
Yeah.
we have to use our own local AI, kind
Yep.
of large language models. And luckily, there are like open source kind of LLMs that allows you to kind of host your own
Yes.
AI. And we use many of them. Like we actually uh, kind of like keep it flexible using all these different LLMs like the Llama and others, and then just comparing them to each other, seeing which one performs better, and then like just using the ones that even like during a conversation we might actually use multiple kind of LLMs, like just one type of for example, a question might be answered by a different kind of LLM. So we can actually arrange that in the backend in our
Okay.
servers that use a different model for
Yep.
different kinds of questions. So that's something we discovered along the way that we could actually do. But it's great that that there is like you don't have to kind of you can still have privacy and compliance using AI. You just need to like be careful about it and not use like ChatGPT, OpenAI kind of services that actually requires you to send the data to a third party, which our customer wouldn't like because we don't share
Yeah.
data with third parties.
Yeah. And that's actually a big question, is that how can you actually the other part of that is how can you actually protect your IP that ChatGPT is not stealing from you and revealing to everyone
Yeah.
else when they do questioning. So that's actually, for me, I'm going, that's really fascinating in that, can I train my AI without revealing it to the general AI, which is actually open, because people can just go and search, what are these guys doing? What's JotForm doing? And if you're giving your data to them, that could become an issue, isn't it?
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, it's just you don't know what's going to happen in the future, and once you send that data to a third party, and we know that all these LLMs, they actually got here by kind of like scraping data using all
Big
these data
data.
all over the world, like kind
Exactly.
of even the generated artwork. You see that it's kind of like there's all these discussion about copyrights because they look like, because they're not really stealing data, but they are using someone's copyrighted material to
Exactly.
kind of train their AI. And what's happening is that this AI can actually say copyrighted data. And if OpenAI gets your company's information and
Yep.
it uses somehow as the training materials, your
Yep.
company's information can show up somewhere else. I think they say that we don't do that. Like whatever information you send to ChatGPT, they are not like kind of reusing that data. Like they're
Well,
saying that, but you can never be sure. Yeah.
I would just call bullshit on that, frankly, right off the bat. Right?
Yeah, yeah.
So, Aytekin, I'm going to ask you one last question to wrap this up. It's been a fascinating conversation, and I think what you're doing is you're trying to make it easy for people to create forms. AI takes it to another level. In other words, remove the mundane and allow them to make better decisions. So, if you had all the money in the world
Mhm.
and you weren't paid for it, what would you do every day? What drives Aytekin? What makes him happy?
It's actually at this point, I could retire today. Like I don't actually need to work another day. And I don't actually I'm actually in that position, and I continue to lead my company because I really care about what we are doing, and like I enjoy. Like, I can also start a new business as well. Like, why don't I just start a new business, new product, as opposed to continuing what I'm doing? Is because like I can make a bigger impact by like just improving. Like, there's already like 25 million people using JotForm, and everything I do kind of can have an impact
Yeah.
on them, as opposed to starting a new company. And we are always like building new products at JotForm as well. Like, just we are adding new products that I kind of satisfy that kind of entrepreneurship like spirit in myself, but just building building JotForm AI is like building a new product, but I'm still impacting our existing user. I'm creating a bigger impact. So I still enjoy this. And the other thing is like, I have kids. I have 3 kids, and my youngest is like 1.5. So this kind of
Oh,
means I have to be in a big city, and I cannot just, and the other kids are in school. I cannot just travel all the time. Like, just that kind of lifestyle is over. Like like uh like uh 12 years ago, my wife and I just traveled Europe for 3 months, and I enjoyed that a lot. So I did some traveling when I was younger,
yeah.
but like I have to be stable I have to live in a big city, make sure that my kids go to a good school and they get a good education.
Yep.
And this means that I cannot just travel all the time. Like, it doesn't make sense for me to
Yeah.
have this different kind of lifestyle. So, if I'm gonna be living in a single city, if I'm gonna have this life, that means that kind of, like, one of the things I really enjoy is actually I also enjoy the nature. And I own like 6,000 trees in Turkey.
Wow.
And kind of my parents' hometown is like near the sea, and olive trees, and I enjoy like picking olives every year, and take my kids. We go together and pick olives, and we spend time in the nature, and in the mountains, and in olive orchards. But I couldn't do that full time. Maybe once my kids, which is going to take a long time because I have a 1.5 year old.
You do.
Uh, Once I sent her to college, then maybe I can just become a full-time farmer. But until then, I'm going to continue doing this, and I enjoy it. So it's all good. Yeah.
Good. Well, continue adding value to the world, changing the world. One subscriber at a time, and you've got 25 million of those, which is really awesome. So Aytekin, thank you very much for sharing your insights. And yeah, I've heard of your journey a long time ago, and you're still here, and 25 million subscribers is pretty awesome. So, and you remove the mundane for us, which is actually really awesome. I hate filling in forms, right? So thank you for making my life easier, and look forward to catching up with you in, well, I might be in Istanbul in a couple of months or a month. So, but you're in
Yeah.
Ankara, which is a little bit further away. So
Ping me when you are in Turkey, and then hopefully we can, meet up. And
good.
I really enjoyed our conversation, and thank you for having me on your show.
Thank you, Aytekin. It's been an absolute pleasure.